All right, I am reacting to the Officer Tatum and Jubilee recent drop. It says one black cop versus 20 liberals. As far as I know, he's not a cop anymore. It should have just said black conservative. But this is the section. This is claim 3. It's a 2-hour video. We're not going to react to the whole thing. I have not seen this, so I just chose which one I think I would like to watch. Gonna react to it in real time. I have not seen it. It just came out yesterday. We're about to jump in and take it from there. Let's see what they're talking about today. His claim is police officers. Oh no, this one is.
Surrounding claim is that black people hurt black people more than any other group.
If you'd like to be the next debater, get to the chair in 3.
Black people hurt
2,
black people more than
1.
any other group is the claim.
What's up, brother? How you doing?
Great, nice to meet you. Great. Okay, I personally think that since we're talking about groups, I think that Republicans, their leadership caused more harm. I think the fact that Louisiana, which has one of the highest murder rates, Your Cop, has one of the highest poverty rates, that's run by Republicans. And honestly, with the Voting Rights Act, they just axed the fact that black people can have a voice.
Is that a mohawk?
So when we talk about like political harm, Republicans are trying to destroy black people. When we talk about economic harm, Republicans, I mean, with the tariffs, with just how we're
Tariffs
doing as
are
a country
good
right
for
now,
the whole
Republicans
country,
have
bro.
axed any way that black people can be able to speak, profit. We can go back to racist policies like redlining that, President Trump has participated in twice. I just don't understand how black people are doing more harm there.
Okay, I disagree with a few things that you've claimed, but what I'm saying is that if you look at, I don't know the ages of everybody in this room, but if you're 25 and under, the leading cause of death for you is being murdered by another black person.
Where?
What do you mean where?
Probably
Where are victimizations of black people higher?
In
the
black
hoods?
neighborhoods.
Where? In red states? In Mississippi?
No,
in
no,
Missouri?
hey,
No, right?
Well, not necessarily true. Mississippi as a state,
Yeah.
obviously has majority white people that live in
Yeah.
it. We're talking about cities that are
They
primarily
about to
black
vote his ass out
that are
quick.
dealing with these issues.
So my problem with this is that whenever we talk about black harm, we're only able to talk about murder rates.
No, it's not just murder rates. I would argue that black people systemically voting for Democrats have been very harmful to the black community.
How?
Well, when you look at, let's start from
I mean, everybody knows it's. Everybody knows the hoods are dangerous, bro. Like you could find statistics and all that. I know that. Everybody knows that. It's not that. It's just crazy for to feign, and I think this is fake for this guy, Mohawk guy, to act like we don't all already know in this country that hoods in general are dangerous places to walk through, to live. This is just understood. And when someone's like Officer Tatum says these things or says black people harm more black people, when you're in your group and you're in your city and there's poverty, yes, there's a bunch of different factors to be considered. But yes, even trailer parks, if you say white people harm white people in trailer parks where they're mostly white people, that would be a fact, and it would be undebatable, undeniable, because mostly white people live in trailers. Mostly black people live in the hoods. What are we arguing here?
Martin Luther King all the way on. There's plenty of statistical data points where black people have declined.
Who had-
in the birth rate? Let me
Oh,
finish.
I'm sorry.
In
They're gonna vote his
young
ass
black
out
people
quick.
born into single parent homes, black people engaging in employment.
Can I talk
and mind
about
you, hold on one
employment?
second. Let me get
Yeah.
get to point by point.
Yeah.
And this entire time, black people have been consistently voting for Democrats, which I argue is hurting the black community.
You went to employment, right?
Okay.
So let's talk about unemployment. Who had the lowest black unemployment?
What you mean? Who had
Who
what?
had,
state?
what president? Yeah, what president?
Well, Joe Biden did.
Okay, so Joe Biden, the Democrat, right?
Let me explain. The first decline that we saw, which
he
was
about to get his
historic,
ass
was
outta
under
here.
President Trump.
Yeah, and then it was historic under Biden, right?
And then it went down
After
under Joe Biden.
a pandemic, right? It was historically low in 2023 at 5.3 or 5.2 for black unemployment, which beats Trump's 5.5, which increased to like a 7.9 by the end of his year.
Some people can argue that Trump's policies residually rolled over into
Like Trump's
Biden's administration.
like the Tax Cut and Jobs Act.
Opportunity zones help black people. Tax cuts
Is that
do
why
help.
he didn't bring them back and brought them back for rural areas?
Tax cuts do help black people. I don't know if you believe this
Tax
or not.
cuts
Black people
help
do have jobs.
everybody.
Why
And
did
they do rely
I agree.
on taxes being cut
That's why
to help
Biden
about to be
had
outta
a
here.
lower
They need like
unemployment
2
rate.
more
But when we were
votes.
talking about tax cut, Biden had a child tax credit that Trump took away, that the Republicans didn't want to put into his 2023 and 2024 year. So why are the Republicans stopping those tax cuts that you said black people have children that we don't care about?
I think we're getting off track. The premise of what I'm saying is that the ailments that we see in the black community are perpetuated by other black people. Listen, let me say
a
the
way that
drug.
Republicans Republicans or
The
Republicans.
drugs that are sold in our communities are sold by us. The
I thought it
crimes.
was so
So his whole thing is he's saying black people hurt more black people in the hoods in the democratic cities, and he's not okay. I guess his stance is it's actually Republicans. He's saying it's Republicans that hurt more black people. In this instance, I would have defined, okay, we need to define hurt because you have crime, you have violence, you have shootings, you have stabbings, you have robbings, right? And if you define the hurt parameters, right, and I'm sure that's what Officer Tatum is speaking on, physical violence, and maybe this guy, he's coming from systematic racism, and so they have to agree on the definition of the word hurt in this claim, so that they can drill down to those specifics. Because hurt is very broad and vague, and hurt could mean many different things. So I think that's what the issue is with this Mohawk guy, but he's about to get voted out.
Crime that is
Venezuelans.
committed in our communities, that's devastating our communities, are perpetuated primarily
So
by
what's your
us.
solution?
Okay,
What's your
pause.
black
That's a
people?
good
I'll give you a
solution.
You've
solution.
been voted out by the majority.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Have a
Thank
great
you.
one. Thank you.
Thank you, brother.
If
So
you'd
hopefully
like to be the
somebody
next debater, please get to the
irons out
chair in 3,
what he
2,
means by hurt.
1.
That's what I would have did. Define hurt.
How are you?
Good. I'm Zena. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well.
Okay, so black people hurt black people more than anyone else hurts black people.
Okay.
My question to you is why?
Well, that's a really good question. I think that it stimulates from a few different facets, and I think a lot of them are responsible, but for the most part, by black people. When you are not raised in a loving household and you're not protected, you don't have a father in the household, those things lead to devastating outcomes. Young men doing things they're not supposed to do, like we see in modern society, these young YNs.
That's all facts.
All of these things are contributing factors to decisions that we
What's she
make.
laughing for?
Okay, cool.
That's how.
So
what's the people
what
call
you're
them?
describing is a byproduct
She calls
of
them that too,
poverty,
probably.
right? And what we know under a capitalist system
Oh, he
is
said
that
young
poverty
YNs. That's
compounds
young.
over time and history as well as
Okay,
wealth.
that's funny.
And what has happened systematically
said
as well as
YNs.
systemically in the system is that black people have been pushed away from wealth creating mechanisms. This has happened for generations, even past slavery. Even if we were to argue that after slavery, nothing else happened. There was no Jim Crow laws. There was no redlining. There was no unequal implementation of the GI Bill. We would still see that, like, our country has lived under the disenfranchisement of black people longer than it has been free. So my question is, what do you think accounts for like the $4 to $16 trillion that was stolen from black people through slavery? Like, where does that equalizing mechanism?
I don't believe that you can say
Where's
that
slavery coming
money
into
was
this?
stolen from black people during slavery.
Oh, but it was.
Let me explain. Because money wasn't stolen, opportunities were not there because black people were slaves.
Yeah,
That's not
yeah.
a fair comparison.
So imagine
Now,
this: you got 200 people on a plantation, and they're making you millions and millions of dollars, right, a year through their labor, right? So what happens is there's no money to steal because black people weren't granted the.
Well, she's making the argument that slaves. She's making an argument about slavery. This is one of those things that never makes sense to me, especially in debates like this where we're talking about modern issues. It makes sense, but it doesn't make sense. She's talking about how slaves were viewed as financial assets to the white slave owners back in the day, right? And how apparently that's some type of monetary thing that was siphoned away from slaves. Well, slaves didn't own any property. They weren't even seen as people. It's a fallacy. It doesn't make any sense. And we're talking about black people hurting black people more than any group today in 2026, maybe even the past 20 years or 100 years or so. I don't understand these slavery arguments when they happen. And she's talking about financial stuff. It seemed like she wanted to say this. She already had done some research, and she wants to just get in front and talk about other things. But this is not the claim. We're not even on the same topic right now.
Humanity
Well, you're
to be
saying
compensated
black
for the value
people.
that they created.
Well, let's look at it like this. This is an environment and a dispensation of time where slavery was a fact and a reality around the world.
And we live under
So
capitalism, right?
Let me explain. So it's not
Bro.
like it was somehow uniquely.
Oh, it was very
it's
unique
not
to the West.
uniquely in the
No,
United States of
slavery
America.
is
Chattel
not.
slavery?
Majority of the slaves
wanna
were in
compare
South
chattel
America.
slavery
Let me just give you an
to-
example. Majority of the slaves were in South America. You do agree to that? About 400,000 black people
Do we
were
want to
made
focus on
slaves
America,
over
though?
time.
Why are we pivoting the
He's
conversation?
talking
Like,
about the
what
South
I'm
of
doing-
America.
You
What-
got it. You jumping
What-
around.
No.
Let's stick to
I had a
something where we
question.
can
Do you
have
remember
a.
the question I asked you around 2 minutes
You
ago?
gotta clean your glasses,
I asked you
too.
this.
I
What
feel
was
like
the,
you want to be confrontational more than you want to get to the bottom of
Well,
a conversation. You're saying
it's unfortunate that
we
that's the way
need
that you
to-
feel about
no,
how
no,
I'm trying
that's
to
not
approach
true.
a question.
We need to stick to a
What's
point.
the
Are you saying
equalizing
what?
mechanism? $4 to $16 trillion, right, was the revenue that was created through the unpaid
You
labor
cannot,
that came from chattel slavery.
In my opinion, you cannot judge slavery and act as if black people even had a fair chance in the first place.
That's what I'm talking about here.
Let me explain. We need to talk in terms of after slavery was abolished, what opportunities were presented
If we
to
do
black
that,
people.
we cut out around 2/3 of the story, right? So what I told you before, right? We live under
What?
capitalism, and if we live under capitalism, what we know is a couple things. Wealth comes from capital, and capital compounds, right, value. So what happens is property
Are
taxes.
you trying to
Hold
say
on,
that
hold on.
inevitably black people
Hold
will
on.
never have an opportunity
Mister,
to be successful in
Mister,
America? Is that
I'm
what you're
That's what it sounds like to me. You know what I'm saying? Every group throughout history has participated in slavery and has been slaves. It is unfortunate that, at least in America, in the Western world, in the most recent centuries, it was black people as slaves in this country 300-400 years ago. It's just the most recent instance of it, right? We're removed from it, but we're not removed from it because of how recent it was in our history. But slavery goes back eons, centuries, millennia, and at some point you have to cut off. You just have to cut off. You know what I'm trying to say. You have to cut it off. Start from where you are. Look at the present, and then look fucking forward.
Explaining something really crucial here
I mean,
that'll help
can you
you
answer
with the
that?
point.
Because I think we'll be on
You
the same
can't interrupt
platform.
me when we're not having the same conversation.
I'm
if you're gonna
trying to
interrupt me.
get to a
Okay,
point where we can have a
so
real discussion.
If it is the case that property taxes, right, fund our school systems, build them up, okay, and we see redlining literally labeled neighborhoods where black people were living as inharmonious, full of inharmonious racial groups to the point where they couldn't get the
Yes, this is all things that have happened decades ago. Nobody disputes this. I don't think Tatum disputes these things. It's just there's this constant desire, need, and requirement to look and be stuck in the past and use the past to determine where you are in the present and where you're going in the future. That I can't agree with. That it doesn't vibe with me, and it's not in my spirit. Yes, bad things happen in the past, in everybody's life, in my life, in your life, watching this. You have a choice. Either you're going to stay stuck in the past and looking at who you were and what's happened to you, or you're going to make a choice to focus on the present and the fucking future. It's just really simple, guys. Black people hurt black people more than any other group. In 2026, let's debate those claims. Why are we talking about redlining, slavery, and everything that is all understood and historically accurate that cannot be refuted? We can't change any of that. We only have today and tomorrow.
mortgage, right? This was what, 60 years ago? Grandparents,
Exactly.
parents, right? Who
Exactly.
experienced that inability to have a home. 2/3 of the middle class gets their generational wealth from properties. Where's this equalizing mechanism? Why do you expect there to be a similar playing field?
Okay, I think we're going to go in circles if we go back in time. What mechanism?
Oh, we got
Yeah.
to.
I'm saying that we're going to get
No, you
to
don't.
a standstill. What mechanisms are in place today that prevent you
Does-
from having the same financial success as
Great
anybody else
question.
in this country?
Does inheritance exist under
No,
capital?
Answer the question. I'm about to start getting animated now. That is a great question. Answer the question.
I'm giving you.
No.
I'm asking you to answer this
'Cause I've
question.
asked two questions now that were ignored.
What mechanism in place currently
Now she just
prevents you
wants to
from
argue.
being financially successful as anybody else in this
The
country?
continuity of private property, right? So I'm
Are you
answering the
not
question.
allowed to own property?
That's not the question here.
That was exactly the question. This is what I'm saying. It's stuck in the past. She's talking about inheritance and all this generational stuff. You can start today. And not everybody's dealt a fair hand. Not everybody's born rich. Some people are born in rich families. Other people are not born in rich families. Everybody makes their own choices. Everybody can climb the fuck out.
It's who had access to property.
No, we
is,
know.
Nobody's
let's
arguing that. He's not
we're
arguing
gonna
that.
get into an argument in circles.
I don't think it's going in circles. I think you're not answering the question.
Here's the thing that we can agree on.
I asked 2 questions.
Let me say, this is the thing that we can agree on. We can agree that there was discrimination in this country. We can agree that there's some elements of.
Do you agree that
listen,
inheritance exists?
We can agree that there's elements of things that happen in this country that put black people behind. We can agree to that.
Okay.
But what I'm telling you is that we cannot still live.
How do you Okay, they have an agreement about those 2 things. She said, why can't you address them? You address them by starting in your present and moving forward. You can't change the past. You can't change the past. Nobody could change the past.
We're not living in
60
the
years
past.
ago,
We're living in the future.
and act as if we don't have an opportunity today.
Here, let me.
We could break down redlining. We can go through the process of all these different things.
Let me address it.
Because I don't think that we're telling the full story about redlining. I don't think we're telling the full story about economic opportunity for black people in America today.
I think you're right. So white families, on average, have a 10 times higher median household income than black people.
Why is that?
And that's what I want to answer for you.
Let me answer it.
Let me answer it for you. You asked me a question. Why are you answering the question that you asked to me for you?
This is about debates. It makes it really hard to debate when you come to the table and you're ready to argue. You almost want to argue. I mean, and you can't have like respectful discourse. And this is the part of debating I hate, when emotions get involved and you're talking past each other and you're responding emotionally. But it is what it is.
Just let me answer the question for you.
No, I don't want you to answer it for me because I want to answer. I want to participate in it.
At Fastly, we drive web performance and security, protecting you from malicious bots and DDoS attackers.
Back and forth.
Okay, come on.
The reason is because wealth in this country is passed down. The biggest, in 2020.
That is true. Wealth is passed down. But there's a lot of people that become wealthy, first generational wealth, where they build the wealth in real time in their own lives. And there's a lot of rich people and there's a lot of wealthy people who have done that. So she's not wrong. Wealth can be passed down, but not everybody's born into that. And there are other people who actually create wealth in their life.
They projected that $765 billion, right, was passed down through gifts and bequests to the American population, right, the middle class, and that's just the middle class. That is the majority way that wealth funnels down in this country.
Are you saying that black people are not currently able to have financial success in this country just like white people?
I'm saying that we're comparing a tortoise to a hare right now.
I don't think that's true.
I think it's absolutely
alluding
true.
to the fact? Let's talk about redlining real quick, because I think that it's been
vote her out.
disproportionately represented. When you talk about redlining, do you know? And I think it's good for the crowd to understand this, that in the red line districts, 92% of all the people who live in the red line districts were white. Are you aware of that?
Where is this source coming from? Redlining specifically labeled.
Do you not know this as a fact?
Okay, how about this? The underwritings of the HOLC specifically said that black groups, right, were seen as inharmonious groups that we should be very wary. No. Let's look it up. The fact check will be somewhere here or here for you.
FHA.
Right? It said
that's what the
inharmonious
FHA,
groups.
That's
black
what the
people were titled
determined.
as FHA. Okay, they both work together.
No, they did not work together. They were different.
No, they were different, but they worked together.
Guys, you have to pause. You've been voted out. Thank you. If you would like to be the next debater, get to that chair.
Hopefully we get somebody that talks
2,
about the claim.
1.
And let's get into the claim and talk about today in 2026.
What's up, brother?
So we were talking about black on black crime.
Yeah, we can address that.
Black on black crime is a myth. Human beings create crime based off where they're at. In the 90s, there was an opioid epidemic, specifically Oxycontin. This was white drug dealers selling this medicine to white fiends.
Okay.
Over 80,000 people in the year 2023, according to the CDC, overdosed from opioids. That same year, 31,000 people overdosed from cocaine. Now, a portion of those cocaine users were likely black people who were on crack.
okay.
However, more than twice as many people overdosed on opioids that were white drug dealers selling to white fiends. However, in no instance did anyone come up, a policymaker, and say that this opioid crisis was white on white crime. However, when black people engage in crime based off where they're at, the government uses it as an excuse to overcriminalize them in a way that white communities are not criminalized at all.
I disagree.
That's fair. I say that's fair. He's right in the marketing. And the marketing, there is black on black crime marketing. And there is not white on white crime marketing, Latino on Latino crime marketing. And so that's a fair point. And interested to see what Tatum's going to say.
With you, because I don't think that anybody's saying black on black crime necessitates a police response. People point out that black people disproportionately, or I'll say to a higher degree per capita, kill each other more than any other group.
It's not accurate.
That is 100% accurate. That is 100% accurate. Anybody can fact check that. We kill each
Latest FBI homicide data show a strong same race pattern in the reported single victim, single offender case. About 89.5% of black victims were killed by black offenders. But it should be framed as FBI reported case data, not a universal statement about every murder in America.
each other at a higher rate per capita than any other group. That is a fact. Now, the reason
The thing about fact checks, you have to understand, even whoever Jubilee uses, this kills me about facts, stats, and data. There are studies conducted, and then there are studies conducted to counteract that study, the original study conducted. You can, for the most part, research and find any study that supports your bias and your claim out there, because there's always somebody funding research or studies to support that claim. And you can also almost always find studies and research that counteract that claim. So fact checking, I don't know what the solution is to figure out an objective fact checking mechanism that is unbiased in all aspects, that is 100% objective. But I think even with fact checks like this, and fact checking anybody in general, you can always find cherry picked information, cherry picked studies. And it's just hard to just blindly accept these, because if you understand the psychology of the human mind and who does studies and how much information is out there, there's always counteractive information, and you just don't know really what to believe.
reason that people point this out is because others try to claim that the biggest threat to our existence, the biggest threat to our young people are white people,
Absolutely.
or systemic racism.
That's
The biggest
fake.
But the
threat to-
reality
That's not
is the cause of death, the leading cause of death for young people 25 and under, from 15 to 25, is being murdered by another
Okay.
black man.
I dig
then
it.
you go on beyond that,
I dig it.
and the leading cause of death is what? Health issues,
I dig it.
heart
I dig
disease,
it. So the biggest,
diabetes,
okay,
and
all right,
other.
I
It has
got you,
nothing to do with
I got
white
you.
people.
Okay, cool. So
Okay.
the biggest threat to black people and the biggest threat to the world is the system of racism and white supremacy that we live in. Because the system of racism and white
Give me an
supremacy.
example how
I'll give you
the
an example. I'll
system
break it
is-
down. The
is
system of
directly
racism,
affecting you.
Exactly. The system
Okay.
of racism, white supremacy affects every faction of interaction.
Give
We're
me an
talking-
example.
I'll give you an example.
Okay.
We're talking economic, social, and sports. So
Sports?
these black drug dealers that you're mad at. For example, Freddie Gray. Freddie Gray was a petty black drug dealer.
He still
who
was selling drugs.
Yes, he
To
was
who?
selling
Who
drugs.
was he selling
He
drugs
was
to?
selling drugs to black people.
Okay.
But no petty white drug dealer
No,
has
we're
ever
not-
been
why we
thrown in
gotta
the
talk-
in the back of a
That's not
paddy
true.
wagon and ended
That
up
is not
dead.
true. They just
only
didn't get
black
publicity.
people are only petty
That's
black
not
drug
true.
dealers are criminalized.
Just because he was right about the publicity in the media perpetuates and pushes all that shit. But I'm sure plenty of white people, drug dealers, have been tossed in the side of vans and things like, oh my God.
For selling drugs. That's because we live in a system
You want to go to Freddie
of
Gray?
racism,
You wanna go-
white supremacy
Who was the judge?
that over
Who was the
that
judge?
over-criminalizes
Who was the judge?
actions of black people
Who was
and
the judge?
overlooks petty white crime.
Who was the prosecutor and judge?
I didn't know where to begin. I had put a lot of money into
I
my
didn't know
house
where
and
to
run out of
begin.
my savings.
Bye.
that allowed those police officers to get off in that crime. It was a black judge and a black prosecutor.
Also, in
And there were
2018,
black officers in it.
there were multiple officers in Baltimore who were found guilty of planting drugs and weapons on black people and arresting them.
That's just dirty cops, and they're all over the place. Dirty cops do that to everybody. They're dirty. That's why they call dirty cops.
That is an example of racism, white supremacy being used to weapon.
They would have to have all been white cops and doing like black cops plant stuff too.
Crime and criminalize black people. You've never heard an instance in which petty white drug dealers have had drugs and weapons planted on them that has led to their arrest?
Have you ever been a police officer?
God,
have you ever
no.
arrested? Have
God,
you ever
no.
arrested anybody?
God, no.
Well, let me break this down.
God,
the things
no.
that you're saying are focused on what's happening in the black community. You don't know what's happening in the white community.
I know exactly. I just told you they're fiend out. I told you there's an opioid.
No, he's not listening. He's not listening.
There's an opioid crisis. White street drug dealers are selling street fentanyl and Oxycontin and opioids to white fiends. But it's cool and it's not over-criminalized.
Cool to
because
who?
It's cool to
you're saying,
it's cool to the government. It's cool
that
to the people it's cool to the people that write the laws. The people that write the laws, the government and the politicians are not over criminalizing this behavior. They're not chasing the white dope dealer, the white petty drug dealer. They're not chasing him around and throwing him into the back of a bag in the back of a paddy wagon.
What makes you
the
think
same way that Freddie Gray got thrown into the back
What
of a
makes you
paddy
think that
wagon.
they're not chasing criminals?
He's not voted out.
Please let Officer Tatum speak and address what your
Yeah,
concerns
let me. You said a lot of things. If you're saying that there's no instances where white people are getting arrested for criminal activity, or you're saying that they're not thrown in the back of the paddy wagon and dying,
criminalized the same way as black people.
No, that's not true.
What I'm saying is these white drug dealers are not policed and criminalized
This is
and put on
ridiculous.
TV and looked at as criminals and drug dealers in the same way.
He said it. They're not put on TV. That's true. And that's what we're talking about when we say the media continues to perpetuate a certain narrative. He needs to blame the media for that.
Way that petty black drug dealers like Freddie Gray are criminalized and thrown in the back of paddy wagons.
Let me respond. Let me respond.
Follow with the media
I have to pause it here. He's been voted out by the majority.
It's good.
If you would like to be the next debater, please get to the chair in 3, 2, 1.
Back again. Okay, so thank you for clarifying the prompt for us, because I was a little confused reading it, because white people hurt white people around the same rates. But I guess my question is starting when and how are you quantifying harm?
Okay, that's a great question.
That was what I was
I
talking
think
about
that we
earlier.
can go all the way back to the beginning if you want to in slavery, when the slave trade was proliferated.
Okay.
Black people enslaved each other
Where?
in Africa. Black people enslaved other blacks in Africa and sold them all over the world. That, to me,
Everybody was
that's an incredible
enslaving
harm
everybody.
of black people inflicting on other blacks and perpetuated across the world. Then you have slavery now perpetuated in South America. You have it in the United States of America. That is initial harm. Okay. I would argue that the point in time of slavery in America as we know it, I believe that white people hurt black people more than black people did.
Yes.
Now we go post-slavery.
Okay.
I believe that black people began to take the torch and destroy themselves or destroy other blacks more than any other group in America.
Okay, so let's start post-slavery. I'm gonna ignore the thing about black people selling black people
Is
in
that not
Africa.
true?
Why?
Well, do you know how many black people were sold as slaves to each other in Africa?
Well, millions were sold in the slave trade around the world.
Are you talking about the transatlantic slave trade or before the transatlantic slave trade?
Transatlantic slave trade.
Okay, yeah, but that was by white people again.
What you mean it was by white people? I'm saying that black people enslaved other blacks and sold them to white people. I think
they
that
were
was
primarily
was that not
kidnapped
true?
by the Portuguese.
There was not
The main-
primary
the
kidnapping. It was an
main
actual
method.
legal slave trade that existed.
Yes, I
and
mean-
millions of transactions between.
This is the part where I love since you love going to the past and you love to go hundreds of years ago, and then you want to ignore certain truths about history. And yeah, that's true. Black people did enslave black people and sell black people all over the world. Again, every major group, every empire, every kingdom throughout history, whoever was in power, whoever held the keys, enslaved people of all races, genders, and ethnicities. It didn't fucking matter. But in this country, you want to be hyper focused on when white people enslaved black people in this country, and I guess that's fair, but you can't ignore it when we're going into the past and we're talking about historical factual data. She wants to ignore it. She doesn't even want to mention it. She's acting like she doesn't even want to entertain it as far as a reality. But it's true. It is a reality.
The legal slave trade that existed before the transatlantic slave trade was mainly based on when a tribe conquered another tribe, they were prisoners
Still
of
enslaved.
war, which is still enslaved, but it's different from the transatlantic slave trade when we're talking about black people hurting black people versus white people hurting black people, right? But I wanted to go focus on your claim about
Post-slavery.
Post-slavery, yes. So the primary, I guess, what do you think black people were doing post-slavery?
Well, you know, I think there's a period of time where there was an explosion of black excellence.
Yes, Reconstruction.
After slavery was abolished.
Right.
You know, we have black people fighting in the military, black people owning their own companies,
Yes.
building wealth. We have Black Wall Street.
Okay.
We have, you go on, so on and so forth.
Right.
And I believe that as black people begin to support Marxist theology, Martin Luther King and others put us in a path
Okay.
where
Let's
we
pause.
rely on the government more than our own resilience.
Okay.
And you cannot tell me that that's not true.
So let's pause because we just skipped like a good 30 years of history. We just skipped like 3
I'm
decades
giving
of
you a
history.
summation from the 30s to the 60s.
Okay, yeah. So we did Reconstruction, and Reconstruction was ended, right? Because the South took back. At the time, we had Northerners in the South who were running the South so that the Union could stay together. Once the North left the South, Reconstruction ends, and that's when we see black people start to decline. It wasn't Karl Marx. Karl Marx didn't come in and
I said
say,
Marxist theology. I didn't say
But
Karl Marx.
It wasn't Marxist theology. I mean, we're just ignoring the history of sharecropping. That's ignoring the history of Jim Crow, right? You think that Karl Marx was worse for the black community than Jim Crow segregation?
Let me argue this point. Capitalism has rescued and made successful so many people of different backgrounds and demographics. That's why America is so great. What I'm saying is that black people being resilient, operating through capitalism,
disgusted.
and believing in themselves and being self-sustainable was the best path for blacks, and they were successful in that. When they begin to rely on the government, begin to rely on handouts, begin to listen to foolish things that people like Martin Luther King said, it caused us to be more dependent on the government, less dependent on ourselves, and now you see
What did
decline
Martin Luther
in
King say?
multifaceted areas.
Okay, but
Consistent, let me
hold
say,
on. But
I'm gonna let you speak, I'm gonna let you speak. But what I'm saying is that when you look at other groups, minority groups, they did not fall for that. You look at the Jewish population, look at immigrants that came over here, they were self-sustainable, they worked within their community, they built wealth, generational wealth amongst each other. They did not form out their existence to the government.
Can I speak now, please? Thank
Go
you.
ahead.
So the other immigrant groups that you're talking about, first of all, were not subject to Jim Crow segregation laws. But do you? I just want you to answer.
Jews were subject
I just
to
want
Jim
you
Crow
to
laws.
answer this question, yes or no.
Okay.
Do you think that Karl Marx hurt the black community and his ideology hurt the black community more than Jim Crow segregation?
I have to think that through. Jim Crow segregation.
What is there to think about?
Because you're
By the way,
acting.
Karl Marx is white, so
listen,
that would still be a white person hurting the black community. Just saying.
But then Martin Luther King embraced his theology.
Okay, but so
which is a black man leading the black community off a cliff. Now let me just say this.
So you think
I'm
that- wait,
saying
so
that
Carl,
every black
then let
person
me
was
ask you
not
that
subject.
question.
Every black person was not subject to Jim Crow laws. Every black person did not live in the South. There was a lot of successful black people during that time period. I mean, I would give you an example.
The Harlem Renaissance, of
I'm
course.
gonna give you an
We have
example of black people
Northerners.
who were incredibly successful through what? Capitalism. We see Madam C.J. Walker, the first female millionaire out of any race, very successful in the late 1800s, late 1800s,
Okay,
early
but that's
1900s.
one
That's
person.
not just one.
That is
we have
one
we have a
person.
tremendous amount of success.
My friend, it feels
George
like you're
Washington
forgetting-
Carver. We have.
I'd let you talk for a long time.
okay.
I would like my turn to speak.
Well,
I feel like
okay.
we're
about to get
completely
voted out.
jumping over history. We go from slavery to Martin Luther King, then all the way back. We ignore the history of sharecropping, right? We've completely glossed over sharecropping. We've completely glossed over Jim Crow laws and how much wealth was stolen from the black community. We've completely glossed over the Tulsa race riots, and when black people did succeed under capitalism, those communities were destroyed. We've completely glossed over eminent domain and how much of the black community was taken, like literal black.
Let's talk about.
Like, what about Seneca Village?
Let's talk
Like, what
about
any
Black
of these
Wall Street.
communities?
Let's talk about Black Wall Street. Are we on the same page of what happened in the Tulsa riots?
Well,
Tulsa race war?
It depends. What do you think happened?
Well, I know what happened. There was a conflict between black and white people. There was a fight between the two. White people got the best of black people in Tulsa.
Then
is
no,
why-
we are not on the same page.
Well,
no.
let me finish. Let me
I did
finish
hear
and you
that.
tell me where I'm wrong.
That
In that fight,
story.
there was a lot of black businesses destroyed in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
She on
They
it.
rebuild.
People who have a lot of credit card debt can be thankful for this. There's something called financial hardship that allows
I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 years later, and they begin to continue to succeed. Is that not factual?
No.
What's the truth? What happened then?
I mean, the truth is that a
I never heard
community
that.
of successful black people who were succeeding under capitalism were directly targeted because
They were not
of
directly
that
targeted. It was a
success.
conflict. It
Yes.
was a conflict between
No.
a black man, I believe it was a black man.
It started
and
when a
white.
black man was accused of.
And this is the thing with history in general. When there's two different, not even say sides, there's two different stories. And the truth is probably somewhere in the middle. It's probably a combination of what they're saying. Tatum's basically saying it's not how it was depicted and how what we've been told and all the things. And she's going off of the mainstream narrative of, racism and white people came in there and busted the town up, destroyed everything, and the town went to shit and never existed again. I don't know either or. I did hear this story from Tatum about a legit conflict and white people just came out on top and destroyed everything. So like it was a back and forth, but I don't fucking know. When it comes to these things, it's hard to just get hearsay. And again, neither one of these people, her and him, were not alive during these times. So we get stories, we get analysts, we read books. Books are written by people with agendas, historians, newspapers. And we see it happens today. Even today, we have conflict with information that we receive today. Something happens in the news, and depending on your source, who you listen to, same event, two totally different interpretations and perspectives of what happened. Now, you times that throughout all of history, and there's always conflicting information. I talked about that before with studies. You can do a study, you can find studies where this thing says this, and then you find another study over here done with research and data and funded that says something totally opposite. We live in a dualistic world. It's really hard to drill down to objective truth. At certain times, I feel like there is no such thing as objective truth. It's just impossible to reach when you have so many different perspectives and people with their own emotions and experiences and ideas, and then you try to sit them and come to a common ground when it's like, you believe this, there is no common ground. We don't have the same set of facts. We can't be on the same page because we have no objective reality. There is no objective set of facts that we can agree on. It makes it really hard to understand each other. And I don't know the solution to that, to be honest.
Of lynching,
No,
or not
it
lynching,
was
was
not
accused
lynching.
of raping a woman, and then because of that, there was this
The
anger and a
inappropriate
mob
behavior
started.
inappropriate behavior with a woman. There was a conflict that occurred. The first shots rang out from black people, shooting and killing several white people. And
So
then,
how many black people were killed in total?
Oh, I don't know how many black people killed in total. I just know black people fired
Well,
the
I
first
do.
shot.
Can I tell you?
Well,
It was
okay.
300.
How many
and
white
that's
people were killed?
like a low
How many white people were
estimate.
killed?
They not as many, because it was a riot
Because
against
what
the
happened
black
was
community.
white people came up.
Okay, I find it hard to believe that white people ransacked the town and nobody died on the white side. Like, not that many. Was it 10 people, 5 people? Like,
Into Tulsa, Oklahoma, it became a
Can I ask
violent
you a question?
confrontation, and white people overran the black people in that
Can
confrontation.
I ask you, because it kind of feels like you're defending the race rioters.
I'm
a
not
little bit.
defending any
Wow.
race riots. I'm saying
It
it's
does.
a conflict that happened.
That's
Can you
not-
acknowledge that this is one example in which white people hurt black people
No,
unjustly?
you're saying.
Can you just say this is one?
What you're trying
There's
to say
plenty
is
of
that
those.
black people are doing their own thing, and a bunch of white people just came up and destroyed all their property just because.
Yes.
That wasn't what happened.
That
It was a
wasn't what-
conflict.
So,
it was a
okay.
conflict that occurred that caused that to happen.
But you know the KKK existed, right?
They did.
Yes,
In
white
the South.
supremacy existed, and that was in
In
the
the
South. Where's
South.
Oklahoma?
I didn't say that white supremacy don't exist. We're not arguing that.
Yes, that was the point, though.
I'm not arguing that the Ku Klux Klan didn't have a negative effect in the black community. We're not arguing
Yes,
that.
But that's what we are arguing. The whole point of this prompt is that black people hurt the black community more than white people.
So-
and these are some
But we're
examples of
talking
white
about
people hurting the
Tulsa.
black community. And every
Let's-
time I give you one, you say no.
Let's give
that
an
happened.
example of some things
Can we
that
talk
are
about
elements in the black community that I think that
modern-
we can agree on.
Okay.
The single parent household situation with
Right.
young black men born out of, young black men born and women are born to parents who are not married.
Okay, guys, please don't raise the flags on me. I have to make one point, and then I'll get
Okay.
it, okay? So,
Flags
to
going
the
up.
single parent house, I think that's a great example, right? Because I think we can all agree we want black families to stay together. What is the leading cause of the separation of black families?
I think it's a degradation of values in the black community.
Hip hop
Would you say
music.
that the
Cardi B.
criminalization, black men disproportionately going to jail more, has an effect on the separation of the black households?
I would agree to that, but I would
Yes.
also say that is because of the choices and decisions that these young black men are making.
Perfect, thank you. I was hoping you would say that. So,
Is that not true? You don't go to
well,
jail.
hold on,
you
hold
go
on,
to
hold
jail
on,
for
pause.
selling drugs.
Okay, you go to
okay?
jail for selling drugs. Can I read you a quote from Nixon's domestic policy chief, John Ehrlichman? This is at the start of the war on drugs, which we know is what led to a lot of mass incarceration of the black community, a significant increase
This
in
is
black
all
men
facts.
imprisoned and incarcerated for drug possession and selling.
CIA
We knew
did
we
this.
couldn't make it illegal to be either against the Vietnam War or black. But by getting the public to associate the hippies with marijuana and blacks with heroin, and then criminalizing both heavily, we could disrupt those communities.
That's true. It is true. And during that time, there was not a lot of consciousness and awareness about that. No, I wasn't around in those times, so I don't know specifically. But I don't think people were asking where the drugs are coming from. Right? We're not flying the drugs in. We're not selling the drugs in the neighborhood. The drugs came from an external source and were put there. That is true. Full stop. Nobody can deny that. We didn't bring the drugs there. Now, that is the portion of this story that is racist and is systemic and is a negative thing done to black people in their neighborhood, black and Spanish, brown people in those neighborhoods. Now, from that point moving forward, now knowing that, now understanding that, you don't have to, nobody has to make the choice to sell the drugs, to participate in the gangs, to do all those things. Knowing now, there's like this is where personal responsibility comes into play. Yes, they bring the drugs into the neighborhood. You don't have to participate. You don't have to sell the drugs. You don't have to be there falling into the trap and conducting yourself and doing the things that they want you to do in order to arrest you. Mass arrests, mass incarcerations, and all the things. So this is a two-parter. What she said is true, but then there's also the personal accountability part, which most people love to just gloss over and act like it's not a real thing and it's just victim, victim, victim.
I'm not familiar with that code,
Oh, really?
but
Shocking.
I can go and read it later, but that's still
You
not
should
getting,
really
it's
read
not-
it later.
That's not getting to the point of saying that people are incarcerated because
And I think Tatum is disingenuous when he says things like this. Because I know he's a smart guy. He has to have heard these theories. This is the other thing I hate about when people debate and you're on a side. When somebody brings a good point that is historically accurate and you can't acknowledge it because then you're losing or then you're admitting to fault or you're taking a loss or whatever. He could have leaned into that and acknowledged it because that is true, and then went into the personal responsibility things. But he just said, I never heard that, which I don't think that's true.
decisions that they make to commit crimes. Is that not true?
Here it is,
Well,
personal responsibility.
yes, that's
The
how
reason that
criminal
none of us,
justice-
the reason that
do
none
you
of us,
want to
is-
respond to
the reason
what
that
he
none
just
of us,
said?
the reason that
He
none
said
of
he
us are
didn't hear
selling
about it.
dope, why? Because we don't want to go to prison. We value our lives. If you are going to sell drugs and you're going to kill people and you're going to commit robbery, you're going to go to jail.
Yes,
you
yes.
can't blame all of that on the war on crime or whatever the case
But the
may be.
war on crime was specifically to get
No, it
black
was-
men to go
it
to
is
jail.
nothing wrong.
They literally
It is
admitted
nothing wrong
That's true.
with imposing laws that help our community. You act
How
like,
does that help
let me,
our
Let me
community?
explain. You act like it's a good thing for black people to be selling drugs in our community. It is not. So when you go to jail for selling drugs, in my opinion, and I think the opinion of anybody that's rational, that is a benefit to the black community
Diva,
by
in
getting
this quote, he
drug dealers,
literally says-
criminals off the street. And our communities
Personal
to be able to thrive,
responsibility.
our property value to be able to
Acknowledge
go up.
that, but then
These
acknowledge the
people need to
personal
go to jail.
responsibility
That's not a
okay,
negative.
okay, I hear you, thank you. But literally, the domestic policy chief is saying we could disrupt those communities. He is openly
You-
admitting.
you're
No.
saying
I let you
disrupt-
talk a lot. I need you to let
I
me
need
speak.
you to clarify
No.
this. Disrupt his communities in what way? What is he saying? Disrupt the communities.
By
what
heavily
is the end goal?
criminalizing
To what go? To what end?
to hurt black people.
So it hurt,
yeah,
it
yeah.
hurt black people to get
Here.
criminals off the street.
Officer Tatum,
No,
we
he's
have to pause here. You
intentionally
guys have
disrupting
gone
the black
over.
community.
So thank you both so much.
I think that's the wrap of the whole
Thank you.
ABC.
Thank you.
My final surrounding.
Yeah, so that's the wrap of Black People Hurt Black People More Than Any Other Group. I'm definitely going to watch this, the whole thing. I just want to react to that one section. And yeah, I think this both, just Tatum, I don't know. He didn't really, how do I feel about this? I feel like everyone talked over each other. They talked past each other. The last girl, I don't know her name. She brought a good fact about the CIA and bringing the drugs in to the hoods. That should be understood. Things like that, when you're on that level of egregious crime, okay, yeah, you can make those claims about racism and all that thing. But at some point, you have to acknowledge. I feel like a lot of people don't like to acknowledge personal responsibility part at any given time. It's like you get that victim card, and you have to be the victim, and then everything that happens in your life is always somebody else's fault, always somebody else's responsibility. You got to go back to slavery. You got to go back to civil rights. And we're in 2026, guys. We're in 2026. Injustices happen. People go to jail that are innocent. We all understand that. But at the end of the day, you're really the one in control of your life by the decisions that you make, by the company that you keep, by the things that you do, by the things that you work on, by how you choose to live your fucking life. We cannot keep invoking 100 years, things that happened hundreds of years ago, things that happened decades ago. At some point, as a people, for everybody, every race, you have to look at the present, make the mistakes or fix the mistakes you're making today, make yourself a better person today, and look forward and move fucking forward and put the past and the bad things that happen and the bad things that happen to you specifically in the fucking past where it belongs. I'm not saying forget it. You don't have to forget it, but you don't have to act like what happened in the past is fucking with you today. You just don't. So that's the reaction. Catch you next time. Follow Loud and Wrong podcast. Follow all the pages, socials, media, all the things. We appreciate you guys. I'm out.